Set 3 is about to be released in MLB The Show 23, and that means for the first time, we'll be taking some of our favorite 99 overall cards and putting them on a shelf. So now the question is, what do we do with the Set 1 cards? What do we do with our one wild card spot? And what card is the best choice? My name is Kasabi from Showzone, and today we'll be letting you know what some of those best wildcard options are. And again, this wildcard can change at any time, so it can depend on the meta and the cards released in Season 3, but it's not a permanent choice. You can always swap out that card for a different one at any time. Now, the simple answer would be to go on our website, showzone.gg, and just sort it by the top meta overall scores from Set 1, which would give you Set Collection Chipper Jones. Great option, by the way. Switch hitter, plays the infield at some tough positions like third base and shortstop, but that might not be the best choice necessarily. We'll be going position by position and showing you what positions might be weaker where you can bring some Set 1 cards in and bolster your rotation or lineup. So before we begin, I wanted to mention that there have been some minor changes to meta overall. You can check out the full details in our blog post, which can be viewed here. Link is in the description of this video. The top 10 cards are as follows. You can see some collection rewards like Chipper Jones and Babe Ruth. There's also some chase pack rewards such as Fernando Tatis Jr. Pitching can be the position that's toughest to determine a wildcard status for, considering you only use them every few games. Starters every 5 games, bullpen arms maybe every other game, so the likelihood that you choose a pitcher for a wildcard is pretty slim. It would make the most sense to pick a player who's on the field for every game at one of the 8 different positions that's not a pitcher on the ball field. But we'll take a look at the rotation and the bullpen anyhow. For starters, the top 5 pitchers of the game, 4 of them are from Set 2. The lone Set 1 holdout is Bob Gibson, who I'm sure a lot of you have seen as a part of that Boss program reward path. You might still see Bob Gibson quite a bit if people decide to choose him with their wildcard. He is the 3rd highest ranked starting pitcher at the moment of this video. Again, I'm sure we'll probably see some other pitchers in Set 3 for the All-Star program or whatever the new card sets are going to be. Some of those you might be able to unlock right away with Team Affinity, or by completing the program XP path. So if you enjoy using Bob Gibson and you have success with him, this would be the best pick at starting pitcher. Following Bob Gibson, you'd have Pedro Martinez and the World Baseball Classic Shohei Ohtani. I myself haven't really seen Pedro used too much competitively, nor Shohei Ohtani. As far as Pedro Martinez goes, this card seems to be a little bit lackluster compared to last year's. So if you'll be using your wild card on somebody in the rotation, Bob Gibson would be the best choice for you to use. But again, if you have some individual success with maybe some of the other pitchers, go ahead and use Pedro or Shohei, especially Shohei at the DH spot. Relief pitchers in Set 2 were especially strong as well. You had the Tops Now programs, which saw the Milestone, Kenley Jansen, and Craig Kimbrell. So there aren't a whole lot of choices that are worth your time from Set 1. The main choice that I might recommend doing is Eric Gagne from the World Series reward path. Gagne is by far and away the best relief pitcher in Set 1 and 4th in the top 10 for all positions in meta overall from Set 1. He is a 107.49 meta overall score, which used to be out of 99. We have a lot of people going over 100. So that's kind of the scale it's based on. That will tell you how good Gagne is at a 107. Again, though, relief pitchers you only use every so often. So unless you really want somebody who can throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs and then drop the 68-mile-an-hour bender, that's totally up to you. Now, moving on to the positional players, catcher, you do have the chase reward Joe Mauer. Not everybody has gotten Joe Mauer from a chase pack, and in a few days, once Set 3 comes out, the likelihood that you'll get Joe Mauer from a pack will be a lot more slim. Joe Mauer Kaiju card also has quite a bit of speed, considering Joe Mauer wasn't the most fleet-footed catcher on planet Earth. So if you like a little bit of speed going up and down your lineup, JT Realmuto is the best choice at catcher. He is the 2nd best rated catcher in the game at the time of this video, and the best in Set 1. There are a few other options that are decent, and if you enjoyed their swings, Pudge Rodriguez has his home run derby card with max power, for example. Jorge Posada is a good switch hitting option if you do well with Posada. So those would be my top choices for catcher. Catcher can be a really hard position to pick sometimes. Set 2 is a little bit lacking. Some of the best options from Set 2 are going to be, besides Mauer, Mike Napoli, the Porterhouse Incognito card, and Cal Raleigh's Big Dumper card. Not a whole lot of 99s outside of Mauer. First base, unless you really enjoy Babe Ruth's swing or somebody else who has a decent amount of power, like Ryan Howard, for example, there's a lot of good first base options as you continue on into the new seasons. A lot of them have great hitting stats and are a bit poorer on defense. Babe Ruth, you can't really ignore his max 125s for both contact, power, and clutch. So again, if you enjoy hitting with Babe Ruth and you used one of your collection slots on him in terms of the set collections, definitely bring him over. He can also play the outfield at some secondary positions. You also have Munetaka Murakami, who can play third base and first base, but beyond that, I would probably say first base isn't worth a lot of your time. There are going to be some great options in terms of hitting at first base into set 3. I also wouldn't recommend using your wild card on anybody at second base. The top 5 second basemen are all from set 2 at this point, so not a whole lot of good set 1 collections. Rod Carew, if you're interested, is the best option if you like a little bit more of a contact hitter. I myself love Rod Carew, love using him on my team. Probably won't spend a wild card spot on him. Third base and shortstop, there are a lot of solid choices. So again, Chipper Jones is the obvious choice. We mentioned Munetaka Murakami, who can play both third base and first base. Chris Bryant, one of the Diamond Duos rewards, has a lot of secondary options you can choose. His main knock is his vision attribute, so it's one of those things where if you time it well with Chris Bryant, go ahead and use them. The name of the game is to maybe add somebody to your squad via wildcard who can play a lot of different positions and maybe not just one. So these are all good options. Chipper Jones can play the left side of the infield, Murakami can play the corners, Bryant can play third base, outfield. However, shortstop also has a lot of great options that will be leaving. You have Fernando Tatis, Trey Turner's World Baseball Classic card, future stars Ellie De La Cruz. The best options from set 2 are Jackson Holliday, and then the core Derek Jeter if you've happened to complete the live series collection. So shortstop, there are a lot of players that weren't necessarily as good as set 1 in set 2. Shortstop would probably be my best recommendation for a wild card spot, considering Tatis can play shortstop. That's his primary position, but plays very well in the outfield. Trey Turner as well can play center field and has max speed. Again, there's some good options in set 2 for shortstop, but they're not at the very tippity top of the meta overall scores. So it might be worth saving one of these shortstops. In left field, you have the Charisma Ricky Henderson card from the boss packs in the set 1 program path. I wouldn't really recommend anybody else. Ricky's just there if you really like speed, especially. Left field isn't a very strong candidate for set 1 wild cards. Center field, meanwhile, you have a couple good set 2 cards like Incognito Mantle, Willie Mays, Andre Dawson, the Hawk. But there are a few good center fielders that might be too hard to ignore based on how you do with them, and those are World Baseball Classic Mike Trout and the Battle Royale program Ken Griffey Jr. from the Charisma set. I would imagine there might be another Mike Trout that will come into the fold at some point. I'm not sure if that will be set 3, and we did see another Ken Griffey Jr. in set 2 that was a 97 overall from the Father's Day program, but the Battle Royale Charisma of Griffey is just so much better at each attribute. And we all know how much people love the kid. So Griffey might be worthy of your wild card, especially if you're a huge fan of him. He does play well in center field or the other outfield positions. Going over to right field, we mentioned Babe Ruth. He can play first base, right field, left field. He's technically the top right field option, but after that, the next top 5 options are all from set 2 or their core. So besides Ruth, I wouldn't save anybody in set 1 for your wild card. So that covers just about every position for the set 1 choices. And again, here are the top 10 meta overall scores from set 1. But the top picks that we'd recommend for the wildcard are here on the right. And there are a few different changes. Again, Fernando Tatis, chase pack reward, pretty hard to get, but too good to ignore at shortstop or the outfield positions. He just has a cannon of an arm, swings really well, has decent speed. So you can plug him in at a lot of different options. Chipper Jones, his switch hitting ability, high contact and power, ability to play third base or shortstop. He'd make a great pairing with David Wright on the left side of the infield if you've happened to choose both of them for your collection set rewards. Bob Gibson, starting pitcher, again, one of the best pitchers from set 1. There are a lot of good set 2 options, but if you really want the top of the line pitching rotation until some set 3 options come along or become available, he might be worth using for another couple weeks or so, and maybe further into set 3. Can never go wrong with 125s across the board, so Babe Ruth, again, play first base, outfield, decent speed and defense for a Babe Ruth card. And again, if you spent some time unlocking the set collections, whether it was Chipper Jones, Babe Ruth, it would be hard to leave those cards behind so soon. So Babe Ruth, another great option. JT Realmuto at catcher in the 5 position for our top picks. Again, this largely depends on if you have a catcher that you like their swing the most with, or if you don't have Joe Mauer's Kaiju card yet. But JT Realmuto, he can be a great catcher option. He can be a great speed person off the bench if you want like a backup catcher as well. So he does have some versatility in your lineup. Now for some cards that might be a little bit lower tier in terms of the rating, but do have some good versatility or just ability to plug in other places. So Ken Griffey Jr., like I mentioned, can play any of the outfield positions, or if you just want to keep him on as a DH spot, definitely a great option. Trey Turner, I've seen in so many lineups this year at shortstop, but mostly in center field. So if you like having a max speed outfield option, or just again somebody off the bench who can run in some clutch situations, Trey Turner, dark horse pick for your wild card spot. Munetaka Murakami, I think, is one of the most sought after bosses, maybe aside from Bob Gibson from set 1, and he has great speed at third base and first base as well. So if you want a little bit more speed in your infield, in your lineup, running the bases, and some power and contact to go with it, definitely a great option. And the last 2 spots, again, kind of depend on personal preference and how much you want to use pitchers in your lineup, considering you only use them so often. But Pedro Martinez, if you got that set collection reward, and Eric Gagne for the bullpen arm. We asked you guys a few weeks back what your choices would have been for the wild card position, both your go-to player as well as your favorite player. The community choice tended to be Chipper Jones, which again is the highest meta overall score of the set 1 cards, so that makes a whole lot of sense. Again, aside from the wild card, this will likely be the last of the World Baseball Classic cards that we'll see this year, considering that the trademarks and everything San Diego Studio only has access to until the end of the calendar year. These will be expiring on December 31st, 2023. One more note of interest, if you have some of these cards from set 1 and they're not going to be your wild card, but you still think they're pretty good, hang on to them for now. Set 6, which is the final set of the season, likely after the postseason and the World Series and everything goes by, those cards will be made available again. Set 6 will be everybody available at the same time. Since it's the end of the year, you can just have 99s galore where you can go back to old sets, reuse some players. There's no limitations. So I wouldn't really sell those cards unless you don't see yourself playing in January too much. You can continue to collect them for set 1 collection rewards. And that way, if you have somebody like Chipper Jones and Babe Ruth, but you still need to save up for Pedro Martinez, you can still continue to do so and use them as the wild card or in season 6. Let us know in the comments section if there's somebody that you're excited to use your wild card on that might be different from this video, or if you agreed with some of our rankings. For now though, enjoy the All-Star Game break and the beginning of set 3. We'll be back in a little bit with our best in show for set 2 to showcase some of the best set 2 collection cards as well. Signing off for now, this is Kasabi from Showzone, and we'll see you next time.